Okay, we had already unboxed it a little bit because I wanted to get the manual out, and I might have to go back to the house and actually grab the manual. It did have some information on it. This is interesting here. The fact that this particular one, I see the black and orange. But, yeah, black and orange must be, I didn't check. I need to go grab the manual. I need to check something real quick. I do. Okay, yeah, orange and black. I guess it's the new theme. I thought I wanted to compare with the welder. I thought it might be the actual same manufacturing plant, but there's nothing that indicates that. It could be or might not. Don't know. We have stuff. We have adapter. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was that, came with tape for the threads, which I guess we could use. I normally don't. And why don't I usually? I usually don't use the tape because it's known in a lot of things that the little ends, if you're not careful, will foul things up. Which any of your sealer can foul things up. These whips that are on these, this is the AG60. And it says the length is 5 meters, so they must come with different lengths available. I see it has a guard here so that you're not hitting it. I probably will end up tearing that guard off, either on purpose or accident. But we will start out the... Okay, we have to thread this on. Thread the torch onto there. So, is it twisting? It doesn't look like it's twisting everything, so I don't normally use a wrench with a plastic covered nut. It seems fairly snug. We'll see if we need to. Ground. Okay. There it goes. Okay. It's a DINS. It's a small DINS for the ground connector. Pilot, it doesn't tell you, but obviously this wire here must be for the pilot. That is for the arc initiation, so instead of having to strike this on the metal to get it going or get real close, if you're really accurate, you should be able to get it by being real close, as in a few thousandths away from the metal, but you're still more likely to mess up your tip and cause problems. I have never used a plasma that did not employ a pilot arc. I think that without the pilot arc, it's kind of a crude thing. I personally just wouldn't see the point in buying one that didn't use pilot arc. I guess it was common at one time for these smaller inverter cutters, but it would have been something I was never doing. We have a standoff right here. We have another standoff. We have one cup. So it didn't come with much as far as consumables, but it does have some. They say that there are two different sizes, and you can see this one's small, this one's larger. There are two different size forcing cones, whatever, I forget. I'm not that much into these as far as I used to use plasma in the past. Have used it still, bigger stuff, but kind of catching on and learning to some of this. That did not really thread on. No, it just kind of sets on there. It's not hitting the threads correctly. Last turn, it does end up being tight, but That seems to thread. And so, as far as what was already set in it, is their smaller nozzle or larger nozzle? No, it was smaller. I almost should gauge those, having a hard time seeing them. It would appear that all the tips are the same, and part of why I wanted to tear that all apart. And here I am without my Howie's knife again. But here was the thing, first off with the tips. Is the representative from Vevor suggested that I go to Amazon, so that's what I did. I went to Amazon and I bought a kit with all kinds of extra stuff in it, just generic stuff. And I don't know if any of these are different or not. It was just a grab bag of stuff that they sold. And it was a little unclear of what I was getting, but I was getting the most number of pieces per my dollar. So that made me feel good. These don't make me feel good. These came off Amazon, like I say. They don't have the grooves for the little standoffs. And this was also supposed to have a second standoff in it. That was part of why I bought this kit, was it was supposed to have a standoff that fit with these, it was a machined standoff that had two nice little feet on it, the one they showed in the picture. So this particular one from Amazon, I don't know which one it was. Not what it should be. Not what it should be. So, that being the case too, I might end up just sending that back, because why? I wanted to see that we could buy stuff for it, and yeah, that only sort of fits it. So we'll just ignore those. They don't exist. We're going to send them away. Nobody else wants to buy the same thing. So back to this one, and we'll put it together like it should be again. Before we operate this, we're going to need to hook up our air supply, obviously. A question that many people have asked, as far as questions on these online I've seen, is how much air does this model take? And we are going to try and run this on a small air compressor that I've got. It was one I inherited from my dad. Basic, it's a little... No, Dayton was the one I bought. It's some... Yeah, I think it was a generic Chinese, actually. The Dayton is the one I have for supplied air pack use. That's a small compressor, but it's a small compressor of a size I would hope you could do some cutting with this on. Whether you can or not, we'll find out, and if not, we'll hook up to our main line. Okay. Not that hard for a big machine shop, but sometimes, you know, you could do it at home too. It's possible. You wouldn't have to use a drill like that. You could do it with, well, you can't really do that well with a screwdriver, with just a hand screwdriver. I have before, but it's pretty tough to hold pressure on it while you turn it around to drill through. If you pilot drill, they'll work okay. So, we have our air lube, well, not lube system, just a filter. There's an actual filter in there along with the water trap. The water trap is a, looks like a manual screw, or is this automatic somehow? It's pull down. Pull down to drain the water out after it starts building up. We have 4 extra screws that fit the holes in the top. I don't know why. Maybe so we can put a better holder on it. I don't know. We'll go ahead and use their tape. Standard 1/4 inch. So the part that's weird here, this is not too bad. Seems to fit regular 1/4 inch pipe. Probably the same on the other side. It is the brass fitting that came with this that is not that good. that would be the better suggestion even, is buy a different brass fitting that is made for regular pipe threads. That's probably a British gas thread fitting would be my best guess. And we will still go ahead, though, and we will put the Teflon tape that we have here on it. Once again, making sure that we do not get pieces over the inlet that will blow off and go into things. They gave us enough hose so that we would be able to run this a ways away and mount it somewhere else, because they have the two different pictures, the one showing that it goes on the back here to the screw holes that don't exist, so we put them in. And they have the other picture that is of this just kind of floating in space when you hook it up. So they gave us lots of hose so that we could float it in space if we wanted. Yeah. Regular screwdriver would have probably been better. But this is kind of fun. Well, the hose passed the test by being pliable enough to be cut, because that's what it was supposed to do. If it was not supposed to be cut, then we would complain about it. Or if it didn't cut. If we look in the manual real quick, in the early part, it said how much pressure we were supposed to have on this. Machine operating guide. There's a guy named Pete that is from Australia, I think it is, or if not, it's a place where he sounds like an Australian. He does quite a bit on YouTube with the smaller torches, and he's using an old 40 amp machine that he does quite a bit with, and he talks about the different ends, and that's where I found out, trying to figure out the interchangeability on those. I was very disappointed, though, that those Amazon were not correct for this particular one and didn't have the standoff. Operation. If you want to cut any metal objects, please use this plasma cutting machine. Okay, that is reasonable. Tip size and condition. Tip with a 3/64 orifice is good for 0 to 40 amps, whereas a 1/16 is good for 50 to 80 amps. So we will actually want to measure our orifices. I don't know if our calipers will get in there to measure that. I think we're going to have to use pin gauges. Okay. Cut set is preset at 4.5 psi and requires a flow of 6 cubic foot per minute. Well, 4.5 psi at 6 feet per minute is very little and should be able to happen with any compressor. Doing a cut and you're cutting thick plate, same air consumption but slower speed, choose a compressor 1.5 times. I have a suspicion that this 4.5 psi is actually supposed to be 45, and we will see. I think there's a misprint there. I think we will start out at the 4.5 that they are saying we're supposed to have, if we can adjust it that low, and then we'll figure it out. So now let's just take a 1/16 here. That's 60 thousandths. That was not considered a big hole. Okay, that's not. Because the 60 thousandths should go through one if it's a 1/16. Okay, none of those. And the other size that we had listed was a 3/64, I'm guessing. Tip size, yeah, 3/64. 3/64 should be about 45. So it may have been just my eyes. Let's go down to a 42, since we're talking fractional. 42 goes through. Okay, so these are all smaller tips that came with it. There were no big tips. None of those are actually meant, according to their manual, for 50 amps. Let's just, for kicks, before we turn them back, let's see what we get from the boys over here. Looks like the same thing. They're probably all the same. They're probably all the same the world over. Okay, there is no such thing as a 16th inch holed nozzle. We have the technology. We can do that. But we have to start with the basics. I want to start with this on 110. We have pressure over there now. The preset regulator was not preset at 4.5 psi or 445, either one. And if I look at this, we have got a blue one that says kilograms per centimeter, kilograms force per centimeter, and we have an outside one that is numbers with not a, MPa. So neither of these are PSI. So while the manual did say PSI, I doubt that we mean PSI. We turn it down to lock, nothing happens. We pull it up, nothing happens. I have seen this with some regulators before. Oh, I spoke wrong. It moves too easily. It moves too easily. It had been threaded way out, so before you get annoyed with yours, before you go prying it off, same thing. Lots of turns. Lots of turns. Okay. So, what do we set it at? They said it was supposed to be set at 4.5 from the factory, which it was not, and PSI and other things. Let's just try the 4.5 in the middle of the gauge, and we'll see how it cuts, because I really don't even have PSI, and I don't convert it well in my mind. Yeah. We'll see how it cuts. Okay, get me oh, it's fitting.
Yeah.
It's not the hose. It's that British fitting that's into an inch thread, both from metric land, but the inch side over here where we used the standard inch, we have standard inch fittings. We could fix that. We need a Phillips screwdriver, and I'll go get the proper bronze fitting, and we'll fix that. That's annoying. And we'll go ahead and put the tape on here, which is kind of an obvious thing if you think about it. Most of you that are doing this already know that you put the tape on so that you are rolling it on the same direction that you put the fitting in. Because if you go the other way, it will try and peel off as you tighten it. And in reality, it cuts through and doesn't stay as pretty as you would like when you go to use it anyway. That was something, the direction that I learned from my daddy when I was little. When we were doing pipes for the spring that was on our property, which is a really interesting thing now, because that spring, that one's not as happy as the other fitting was on it. It's going. The spring, which he had hand dug that. Yeah, he hand dug. It was naturally coming out of the ground. He hand dug it and we put some concrete tiles around it, which to me at the time seemed huge. We slid them out of a 1-ton pickup and didn't have any hoists or anything. Just slid them out of the pickup, put them into general place, and kind of worked them around. Then Dad dug down with a bar and got them to drop in. And we put cover on it. And a pipe came out of it, so water would raise up a little bit. And then it'd come out the pipe, and we had a 1-inch pipe. And that was where we were using the Teflon. And I think I was preschool even at the time that we were doing this. I was just a little guy coming along helping with that. But later on, interesting, it's now part of the city. It's no longer, we were 6 miles out of town, but it is now part of the city. The city limits moved out, the ground got sold, everything changed. And there's a school over where my bedroom used to be. But the big thing with the spring that I wonder about, because while they dropped the level, there's pictures that neighbor has where they dropped the ground level a good 20 feet in there. Wow. They put in public sewer systems, drainage lines, they did all these things, but where the spring used to be. There's this big, fancy, probably 8,000 square foot house that's really ornate, sitting right on top of where the spring used to be. And I know they've redone all the foundation, the water flow is different, but it just, from looking at it from a kid's point of view, it's, why is their house on top of the spring? It just doesn't seem right for the whole structure of things. Now, since it came out there further, okay. I should have made that line a 1/4 inch longer. It's okay. Why the pink tools? Why the pink tools? Wow, that goes back a long time ago. Doesn't matter now. Lots of people have pink on everything, but in the early days, keeping track of my tools in shops, nobody had pink tools. I decided to step out. The year was 1979. I said, I'm tired of not knowing which tools are mine. I took all my tools, painted them white, painted pink over the white so it would show up, and then put a clear coat over it so it would stay on for years. And that was, 44 years ago. So I still have some pink tools. Most of the pink ones are cheaper tools because I got into buying more expensive ones after that, but that's why they're pink. I repainted them a couple times, did that. That may not have been part of the first round. I painted them pink for about 12 to 15 years, and then I gave up on it because it didn't matter anymore. I had more control over things. I wasn't supplying my tools to shops where I was working. The only shops where I was working supplied me with tools after that, or I was here. But it did work. It did work. I had a punch that I had lost somewhere in the early 80s, and about 1990, a guy came to a shop and he said, John, this is one of your tools. And I looked at it and said, you're absolutely right, but I lost that way before I ever started working here. So it had ended up in somebody else's toolbox in town, made its way around. Finally, they lost it or decided to just pitch it out, let somebody find it, and I got it back. There, we fixed the leak. That's good. And we have 4.5, whatever they are. We have 0.45. And we have 4.5 something. Well, 5. Wow. Okay, let's go. Let's figure that they don't know PSI. Let's do that one. So we're going to try setting this at first at 4.5 kilograms per centimeter squared. Yes, that is what we're going to try. And we will see if that works. We need power for this. We're going to start out at 110. So we'll hook it up to 110. One thing we do cheat here, we have good amperage on our plugs. Most of you, if you have 15 amp plugs running, any of this 110 volt stuff is going to be a problem. If you need 20 amps at your plug, don't just change the breaker, change the wire to it. Upsize it to 12 gauge or better wire. I actually ran 10 gauge wire through our building here, but you need at least 12 gauge for the safety of fire hazard. If you have a 15 amp breaker in your house already, you probably have 14 gauge wire, which is the normal US building standard, and upgrading to a larger breaker will be a fire hazard. So I wouldn't do that. And that's also a reason why there was a lot of the original wiring in this shop was 14 gauge. And a lot of the 14 gauge was running through conduit, so the possibility of starting a fire is not so much, but I still didn't change those to 20 amp, I just quit using them and ran extra wiring. So they say we can use 15 to 35 amps. Cutting thickness chart doesn't really tell us where to set it. Just gives us a general range according to them. The old rules, and I know they change this a little bit these days, but the old rules are that your amperage is basically your digital comparison into what you're cutting. If you're cutting 1/2 inch, you'd use 50 amps, be 0.5. If you're cutting 1/4 inch, would be 25. So that is the old concept. We should throw down one of our pieces. This here's roughly 3/16. Or is it 1/8? No, it's going to be 1/8. I didn't tape measure. It's going to be 1/8. We don't have a lot of sheet metal around the shop. We just, normally if we're doing stuff with sheet metal, it's coming from somewhere else. Now, there is the first turn on of the machine. The panel came on in a little bit. And our preset is coming out digital here. And I got it turned down all the way. It's saying 19.8 for the lowest. Okay. That is with the knob set on 20. It doesn't go down to 0. So that should work for this thickness here. We will see real quick. Actually, that little guard thing, it's not that bad. It's not great. I still think I'll end up accidentally breaking it off, but I don't have to purposely break it off. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. You can see on the camera too if the amperage moves according to what I do with the cut or if it's just something that stays there. Oh, yes. My welding helmet. I need to reset the darkness because the darkness is going to be way wrong for this. You don't want it set on your welding darkness. And I have not ever changed this, so this is strictly a rotary. Okay, and I know somewhere around 8 works good for me with these. Why it has 2, okay, there we go, that's what I thought. That's what I normally would do. I'll leave that back where it was. Normally, this one, most of these have a and B, and so I switched it to the 6 to 9 setting, which actually puts me at about 8 for the same place as I was on the 9 to 13 setting for welding. Okay, now it's bothering me. That thing's noisy, trying to keep up with us. I'm going to give it more air. I got to go get my other glasses too. I can't see that good with these ones for that distance. I'm going to get my welding glasses. I had one optometrist when I was first getting a prescription for welding glasses. He said, "Those aren't for welding in, you need a welding helmet." Yes, I know that, but yeah, but don't call them welding glasses. And I'm like, well, that's what I use them for though. That's what they're going to be for. And I understand, yes, welding with these glasses with a helmet. But it just made him nervous to be writing down, as I wrote down on a piece of paper on this prescription, that they were for welding. Okay, I think we might need more amperage. Seems like it should blow through, but wasn't really doing it. We're plugged into two different circuits, right? One on top of the other for our cords. Yeah, okay, we're fine. So it takes a little bit more on the gauge than what I would think that it should for 1/8 inch. So if we're really going to test it out though, don't even consider cutting something like this. That's the whole reason I brought it. I know Bert was probably wondering when I grabbed that up why. Yeah, I don't care. It shouldn't cut it. That's, we have plasma machines I've worked with that will. I don't have any here that's going to cut 1.5 inches. 100 amp is the biggest one I own. Okay, that seems to be a nice setting, but it doesn't seem to be happy. Let me try, since I figured out that we needed more amperage, let's try less air pressure in case it's blowing back into the pilot and causing problems for some reason. Don't know. Okay, well, we're at the 4.5 again on our kilograms to whatever. It seems to be reasonable pressure. Not making a perfect cut, but I really have not messed with these Chinese style generic cutters before. I've thought about buying, well, I did buy actually one of these to put on a 50 amp 3-phase cutter that I've got, and we just never put it on. Like I said, the size of this work and other things we've got in here, it hasn't been a big priority to have this particular capability in the past. I'm going to try a little more amperage. I'm having to really work to go slow and fuss with this, which I don't like. Let's see. Let's put one of these to a totally different pole. Seems to be we're having some problems when the compressor kicks on. Okay. Now, it may just be the design on these machines, I don't know. But on the commercial ones, if your pilot arc goes out, you know, and you're not getting a cut, it'll come back on. It'll automatically come back on. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing when I lose the cut, I've got to trigger it again. I'm going to just turn it up however high it will go, which it's not supposed to be used at 50 amps on the 110. It's not like the little welder where it wouldn't let us go that far. Okay, we have some kind of a tip malfunction, or it's just not happy there. Okay, let's just back it off. Okay, we just keep losing the cut. Okay. I don't think that what have we got for some car sheet metal, I wonder? Car sheet metal, that's where most people would be using this 110. Ask Austin if we got some scrap door or something around here. We might have something we're not using. It is sheet metal. It's a little thicker than modern day cars, but it would be comparable to a lot of your old cars. And we should turn this down all the way. See how it goes. 110 volt. I'm gonna turn it up again. I didn't like that. What's our air on our compressor? $70? Well, I know it came up a little bit. I just at first, I know it will come back up. I just want to know right at that first, the quickest, what it 70. So it might have even been down as low as 60.
Yeah.
But still plenty of air. So, and I think that's actually considered, does it have the writing on it? I think that's a 4 cubic foot compressor. They said we need a 6. 4, okay, it's 4 cubic foot compressor that we're running it on. I'm gonna try a little bit more here with my 1/8 inch now that cut nice, you know, but I'm set way over the normal amperage you would set it for, and it cut nice. This does not. It just doesn't really like the 1/8 inch. I'm gonna turn it up more. Okay, I give up on the 110. 110, she's good for auto body, sheet metal, ripping stuff. It cut nice. Not the thing for this, no. We will still use our little compressor, but we're going to put this, use our, from the other welders, the adapter we had, so we can go back there and hook up to 220. I'll kick this off for now. So, turn it on with the 220 volt now. Okay, 220 volt. Let's see, I don't know. I'm not sure where the correct setting is since we had to go higher on the other one too. Let's just try 40. Part of what I was doing there was with the cut already going, we could see how much penetration we got into the thicker plate on the side. So it actually is going okay there. I'm going to try it back down, because we should, let's see, this is 8. We should be able to cut this on 20. We haven't tried 20 yet on the 220 volt. Not happy. It cut okay at the 30 amp setting on the 220. It never did on the 110, so the numbers mean something different on 110 than it does on 220. It's not the same setting actually for one voltage supply versus the other. Let us try. I'm going to try a couple things. First off, let's try all the way up here at 50 amps. And it's not supposed to be running 50 amps through this nozzle size, obviously. They already have told us that. Well, let's just stop it at 40. I don't really think it's the number that it's supposed to, which means we can't cut our 1/2 inch. Let's try cutting our aluminum just for fun. I have some thinner aluminum here. Obviously, if we did a lot of this work, we'd have a lot of stuff setting here ready to cut that this would be applicable for instead of having to go get things out of our junk. I like cutting aluminum, fairly thin, 3/16 aluminum. I've got some, this is a bulb angle, they call it. It's got a 3/8 bulb on the side. We'll try cutting down the 3/8 part. Not at that number. It's not going to like it at that number. So now, let's do something, and we'll look at our pieces. It'll cool off a little bit, but let's make ourselves a 60 thousandths nozzle. You have the technology, Bert. Let's see. Rather have the burr come out, so let's drill it from this side. I need the pliers too. And we see a little bit of cratering in the tip there. So pull that out. We'll throw in a new one. Oh, yeah, and turn it up all the way because that's supposed to be for our 40 to 80 amps, I think it said, or 60 to 100, I forget. No, it's 40 to something. Anyway. It'll sort of sever the 3/8 aluminum, but it ain't happy. I did not actually measure this for size. It's not over 1/2 inch. She's lagging behind. Let's try a little more air. And this bigger tip is going to use more air. If you're trying to cut with a bigger tip, I don't think you're going to get by with the 4 CFM. The 6 CFM they say that you need is, huh? What?
Hook you up to the big air?
Oh, I guess we should, since we've already decided we're not really, because it's working at, yeah, might as well. The 4 CFM seems to get by pretty good, cut and light with the smaller caps on there. But with the 16th inch hole we just made, you could hear right away the compressor just kicked on right away and didn't seem to be doing enough. But yeah, I turned up my pressure more, which will use even more air. And it does not like the additional pressure, so let's go for a little less pressure and see if it's any better. No. Okay. Seems like that 4.5 kicky giggles per centi something were about what we wanted. I would say that's something you just don't want to do with this machine. So, we didn't really bring a lot of 1/4 inch up here, did we? We need to go find some 1/4 inch-ish. Maybe even take an actual tape measure and find some things that are 1/4 inch that we can play with a little bit, see how it goes. Okay, we brought in a little bit of 1/4 inch and a piece of 3/8. And while I was talking about 1/4 inch, I'm going to start out here on the 3/8 and just see if it will cut the 3/8 okay up on its highest setting. It didn't like 1/2 inch. I really wouldn't have even called it a sever cut. I'd just call it didn't like it. I would say not really happy with 3/8 either. It can sever the 3/8, but it really isn't doing it well. Not what we should have. Now, since I don't think it's putting out the amperage it's supposed to, I'm going to just try and see if we can do better with the 1/4 inch. It caught it. If we can do better with one of the smaller tips, the more constrained cut. Oh, that's a used one. Let's just go with a new tip too. Even though this one doesn't look all burned out, it's got a little pit. Let's just go with the newest. No, that one was used too. Down to our last one. I don't want to break into my Amazon stock, but maybe we will and just have to buy some different miscellaneous Amazon instead of returning it. We'll see. Which would mean that you could use for whatever this, for this setting, you could still use the small air compressor, because the smaller orifice is going to be the same small air. That cut fairly nicely on the 1/4 inch. I like that. Let's go back to the 3/8. I'll change. I can do it. You're over there at the camera. You're our cameraman. I am cutter man. Okay, it cut the 3/8 pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. With the smaller orifice. It does not have enough machine to carry the larger orifice. We're not putting out 50 amps. I would say this is a pretty good 30 amp machine. That would be my guess. Might even be a 40, it's not a 50. It cut really nice little stuff. We're probably not going to use it too much here. It's a homeowner tool. It really is. It works, cuts stuff, but the real advantage to it is it did really nice on the sheet metal, car body, little stuff. Normally I cut that stuff with cut-off wheels, air chisels, other methods. Reason being then you don't have any slag or extra heat warping. But if you're just trying to whack something out, the plasma is a way to do it. And it didn't warp a terrible lot for those, but yeah, it's not bad. We'll put the link to it. It's usable. It's not as usable as what I think it should be. I think for a homeowner, it's going to help you some if you're into playing around. Definitely not an industrial tool. Definitely not something that I would normally use in a shop. Could you use it industrially? I don't think you could really. Unless you were cutting a lot of really small stuff, which is a different deal, and I don't know how well it will hold up. It cut pretty good on the 1/4 inch with the 220. Now with the 110, there just wasn't enough there in it. The machine just didn't have enough running on 110 to do anything more than the light gauge. It may cut 16 gauge, but and I would figure it probably would. It kind of played with the 1/8 inch. But I think 110, it's a sheet metal cutter. It's what it is. But on 220, it did a nice job of severing the 3/8, and it actually cut pretty good on the 1/4 inch. So the 3/8 severing would be a 38 amp machine normally. 30 amp, but some would rate it only 38 amps if it cut it nicely. So it's right, I would say we're probably putting out 35 amps worth. Now, we could put gauges on it and look at it, but when you're using something like this, your amperage and voltage is rising up and down so high in between what you are doing it's pretty hard to really pin it down. So I go more as to a comparative of a normal machine, what it would be rated at, and it would be somewhere around a 35 amp machine if this was an older thermal arc Miller, whoever, on 220. On 110, it don't do that. On the 110, it really doesn't do half of that. It's functional, but pretty iffy on the 110 for other than sheet metal. Yeah, it's a machine. It will cut. Doesn't cut that great. And we did figure out something else too. These here, that's what the other screws are for. So you can put them on there, and then you have a place where you can hang your torch up on the case. I probably would never do that. I'm not going to bother. And yeah.